Around Radcott they grow the watercress, harvest it, crate it up, and send it to the towns on barges. But they don't eat it. It's bitter, they complain, so bitter it bites you back. And besides, who wants to eat leaves nourished by ghosts? When a battle like that happens on your doorstep, and the dead poison your drinking water, it's only natural that you would tell of it over and over again. By force of repetition, you would become adept at the telling. And then, when the crisis was over and you turned your attention to other things, what is more natural than that this newly acquired expertise would come to be applied to other tales? The landlady of the Swan was Margot Ockwell. There had been Ockwells at the Swan for as long as anyone could remember, and quite likely for as long as the Swan had existed. In law, her name was Margot Bliss, for she was married, but law was a thing for the towns and cities. Here at the Swan she remained an Ockwell. Margot was a handsome woman in her late 50s. She could lift barrels without help, and had legs so sturdy she never felt the need to sit down. It was rumoured she even slept on her feet, but she had given birth to 13 children, so clearly she must have lain down sometimes. She was the daughter of the last landlady, and her grandmother and great-grandmother had run the inn before that, and nobody thought anything of it being women in charge at the Swan in Radcott. It was just the way it was. Margot's husband was Joe Bliss. He had been born at Kemble, 25 miles upstream, a hop and a skip from where the Thames emerges from the earth in a trickle so fine that it is scarcely more than a patch of dampness in the soil. The Blisses were chesty types. They were born small and ailing, and most of them were goners before they were grown. Bliss babies grew thinner and paler as they lengthened, until they expired completely, usually before they were 10 and often before they were 2. The survivors, including Joe, got to adulthood shorter and slighter than average. Their chests rattled in winter, their noses ran, their eyes watered. They were kind, with mild eyes and frequent playful smiles. At 18, an orphan and unfit for physical labour, Joe had left Kemble to seek his fortune doing he knew not what. From Kemble there are as many directions a man can go in as elsewhere in the world, but the river has its pull. You'd have to be mightily perverse not to follow it. He came to Radcott, and being thirsty, stopped for a drink. The frail-looking young man with his floppy black hair that contrasted with his pallor sat unnoticed, eking out his glass of ale, admiring the innkeeper's daughter, and listening to a story or two. He found it captivating to be amongst people who spoke out loud the kind of tales that had been alive inside his head since boyhood. In a quiet interval, he opened his mouth, and once upon a time came out. Joe Bliss discovered his destiny that day. The Thames had brought him to Radcott, and at Radcott he stayed. With a bit of practice, he found he could turn his tongue to any kind of tale, whether it be gossip, historic, traditional, folk, or fairy. His mobile face could convey surprise, trepidation, relief, doubt, and any other feeling, as well as any actor. Then there were his eyebrows, luxuriantly black. They told as much of the story as his words did. They drew together when something momentous was coming, twitched when a detail merited close attention, and arched when a character might not be what he seemed. Watching his eyebrows, paying attention to their complex dance, you noticed all sorts of things that might otherwise have passed you by. Within a few weeks of his starting to drink at the Swan, he knew how to hold the listeners spellbound. He held Margot spellbound too, and she him. At the end of a month, Joe walked 60 miles to a place quite distant from the river, where he told a story in a competition. He won first prize, naturally, and spent the winnings on a ring. He returned to Radcott grey with fatigue, collapsed into bed for a week, and at the end of it got to his knees and proposed marriage to Margot. "I don't know," her mother said. "Can he work? Can he earn?"